space, that there was potentially many megajoules of energy that you can't see, but you can extract from 1 cubic foot of space, a 3 foot by 3 foot cubed space. And you can measure it too, which is incredible to me that you'd be able to do such things. So the crystals, the vibrations, the rocks, the feeling of the earth, the waves of energy that you may feel from even like something like a star exploding millions and millions of light years away, that during our period of time here on Earth may all of a sudden just be getting waves of these new different frequencies bathing us daily. Would make sense to maybe some ancient type of calendar structures that they have that would depict, instead of 365 days, would depict cycles of over 5,000 days. Where, saying that you're coming into a new age, a new era of feelings and things like this, like things will change. It might not be exactly what you thought, right? It's interesting to see how that is. And who knows what types of old ancient documents that could have been found and held from the public and kept as their own advantage. I do feel like those things have happened, especially when a culture decides to take over another culture's land. When they burn it to the ground and they take all their literature, all their books, take their statues down, make it look like they never existed at all, you would think that the intent was to try to make sure that they had no way of culturally getting back in any position to have some sort of significant sway amongst the population. But not only just that, but any technology that they had. Imagine Russia took over the United States. You think that they would just destroy everything and do away with any of the technology that they came across that they were like, well, this is new? They just destroy it and never be done. Just, that's it. Like, we don't care about it. We don't understand it. We're just going to destroy it. Probably not. They would probably find high value to make sure that they had this, and that in their knowledge of knowing that no one else had it, they'd keep it under wraps just like the United States did, or vice versa. When the United States goes over and takes over certain economic cultures and moves their way in to appropriate resources or push agendas to appropriate resources, that they I'm for damn sure that they do the same thing. Make it look like every part of that culture was destroyed to never be seen again, but in reality, they just took the advantage from them and then burned the rest. And I'm sure that has happened for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, to where those of us that aren't living for thousands of years, not handed down this stuff and specifically educated on what it is and the reasons why we don't want everyone else to know about it, are going to be the dumb ones sitting on the sidelines going, that sounds like witchcraft. It sounds like voodoo. It sounds like woo-woo shit that I can't make sense of. But yet they are having the CERN collider that's 17 miles of a circular loop underground, where they're smashing particles together to try to figure out the subparticle reasonings, why they exist, what do they do, how do they do it, why,
what are the
vibrancies? Yeah. Right. Yeah, hedron. There's got to be a reason why they don't just come up with these questions because just random, we just think this thing is possible. No, they had to have had a distinct correlation of an education from somewhere that says this exists, and they want to extrapolate from that. They want to make it bigger, grander. It sounds so confusing as it is. Why would they take certain protons and smash them together? What's the reasoning for it? Why would they be trying to find the Higgs boson particle that actually is the reason why any particle has mass? It
So
is,
we can find more utility out of what's in front of us. Yeah, kind of like what Hedron
mhm,
does to Hex.
yes, to take less matter, less mass, and be able to extrapolate the potential of it by a millionfold. So instead of needing 3 metric tons of matter to be able to get a year's worth of energy out of it, you can take a teaspoon of matter and get a year's worth of energy out of it by appropriating specific vibrational waves with it, to harmonize with it, to give it the best natural environment to uh, pun intended, I guess, to shine as bright as it can. Even when it comes to maybe technically having to move certain particles at a speed where it becomes a plasma, and then smashing it together and having extremely intricate technology to be able to track all of it and how the vibrations change and what happens to the significant properties of our physics and um, the microphysics, I guess, of what happens when you get into that realm, which is a totally different type of physics. Um, and how we can use that in our world, right? How do you take a physics that's smaller than us and be able to use it with the physics that we use? Obviously, the micro physics are the building blocks of our 3D reality. And because we know that, we should be able to, I don't want to say become gods, but be godly, I guess. To know exactly what to do with what to do it with and how to use it the most appropriate way as a third dimensional being would be like doing fourth dimensional things in a space which you should not be available to do. And they're doing it. They call it opening portals. I don't think that it's really that. I mean, maybe it is in a certain way, but not like you would think. It's like an availability for a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a space and time where a portal would open, and these particular very delicate, very intricate computers have the availability to. I don't even think that they're computers. I think that's just what they would call them. Um, have the availability of peering into that space for such a moment in time and extrapolate information from it, almost like ripping energy from a space that you never even knew was there until you created the space for it to be, and then creating data from it, knowing that it's real and that it exists. And that's when scientists are completely shocked. And that's when the numbers matter, and that's when the numbers make sense.
It would be really cool for Alex to name the new UI that has to do with the auctions, the Hedron Collider.
Yeah, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Might have to mention something to him. You might, somebody, everybody send him a DM if you like that idea. And then put a message in the main chat. I sent you a DM to Alex. That'd be funny. It would be very purposeful to us, though. It would make more. It would make sense.
It's amazing, just the analogies that, yeah, I see you draw, and that are just there in life, you know.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just fun. It's fun to think about, fun to talk about sometimes. Anyway, we can we can segue in, out, sideways, away from all of that if people want to, and we can start talking about making money again. If you guys have questions on how to make money.
There's my tortoise. My son and I are feeding him right now.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Dogon tribe of Africa say these African spurred tortoises are like a way to have like get blessings from the, speaking of woo woo, of like from the afterlife and from ancestors.
I can see that. I mean, there's a lot of ancient, I guess you'd call it theology or mythology from the tortoise being like uh, everything built on the back of a tortoise, right? As if, you know, when we look out into space and you take a telescope and you look even further into space, that you still have the darkness on the backdrop, to know that that's a veil. There's a certain veil that us as humans, with our availability, very limited availability of spectral vision, that we have to use our spectral vision to even see an analysis of a computer that shows us the sky, right? Or the Hubble telescope to show us that oxygen is there by representing it as a certain color, or hydrogen, or any of the gases that are there. Like normally you can't see. Look around you. Do you see gas? No. Is it blue? Is it red? Is it green? Is it yellow? Is it all these colors? Fuck no. Those are computers that do those things, that give you the visual representation of the gas and what it is, because it has a vibrational frequency in which they're able to pick up on and actually show you a display that makes more sense to you as a color. So if us as humans had that availability to maybe see the unseen, that maybe that black backdrop that we see as just nothingness, eventually it wouldn't be a veil. You'd actually see something, which would suggest that you have the availability of becoming higher
I
dimensional than
think
the
that's,
third dimension that you're currently at. But that
sorry.
would also
I
be.
was just saying that I think that's
Hmm?
absolutely true
No, go ahead.
because I mean, think about just personally in uh, a person's own psychology of, you know, the blocks that we know exist for all of us, you know? So it's like there's so much that is there going on behind the scenes that um that is connected. And once we start seeing those connections and like the synchronicities, especially, that's what I love in life is, you know, this insight into there being a lot more going on behind the scenes than we can perceive of. And we get glimpses every now and then.
Yeah. I, how are you to know what it is that your perception actually is until you're met face to face with a colorblind person,
Point.
someone who really
I,
has a totally different
I think
perception than you?
I think that happens on a large scale as like a paradigm shift, even from time to time.
Yeah. It's just fun for me to give that relevant understanding and be like, what do you mean? Like, of course I see the same thing as the next person. No, no, you don't. You as an individual in your little head actually has a whole different world of understanding of the everything that you understand, making that little world in your head absolutely yours. It is, there's no one else on the whole planet that's going to actually view the everything the way that you do, making your brain and your understanding of reality the most unique thing to you as a human. And for you to actually think that the next person next to you is an exact frequency vibrational understanding as you are, you would be wrong every time. So everybody has their own world in their own head on how they view things. Yeah, there might be certain things that you agree with, but I can guarantee that there isn't going to be everything that you agree with. And in some sort of ways, you will find out that the majority of the things that you understand is not the same as what anyone else. It's easier to be like, yeah,
Aspect.
you see color, other people don't.
Yeah. The fascinating aspect is how people can share a common reality and yet almost live completely in different worlds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's blind people out there that don't need their eyes to get around in the world just fine. They have a heightened sense of reality in their other senses that gives them a different advantage. So, I mean, like bats, they use echolocation to be able to use vibrations to be able to have their brain see the outside world in a totally different way. There's frogs out there that actually see in like 13 different dimensions of colors. That's
I
crazy.
really
It's
believe
crazy.
that we only suffer through a lack of
13?
knowledge, and sometimes we have to have the knowledge before we can even see it, you know? And it maybe it existed,
Yeah.
it always existed right there, and we didn't have the knowledge to be able to even recognize it, and so therefore it what we weren't even aware of it, and even though it existed, it wasn't even really in our reality. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I guess in like many ways, a lot of what we would say is like invisible stuff wouldn't be coming from our reality, because how could it be in our reality if, if it's not there? If your sense, if you had a sixth or seventh sense, let's say, that was specifically designed for your survival, that needed to have these understandings of these things that are unseen.
Very true. Um, Man, that's a interesting little pump we're having in Hex today.
Yeah, yeah. It's let me see here. Let's see if we're riding on the side of volatility. Ah, we were right back up on the wall again.
It's hard to see a wick like that be very sustainable. Um, Probably gonna have a pullback, yeah. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, this
on a
is
very small time frame.
that's why right there. As you can see that as price goes up, that red line that you have in the center there moves further to the left. As you can see, it's coming out of all the majority of the liquidity, causing for higher volatility at that current price, any higher than what we're currently at. So it's not as sustainable, but there is liquidity there. I mean, even though you're going down to a lower volume of liquidity at that lower rung there to the left of the red bar, there's still liquidity there. So there is it allows for price to continue to move up. To me, it looks like that's about 5.5 cents by the time that it drops to the next tier down, and then goes up to 6.5 cents, and then it goes to like extreme volatility after that, like no assets there. But I mean, as far as I keep reloading this page and seeing that liquidity providers haven't appropriated uh, more assets on the higher end, that we could see very volatile green candles on the buys on the high side, but any amount of sells that happen after that volatile candle is going to put us right back to where we are right now, right? Uh,
Yeah, that makes
Pretty
sense.
easily. So yeah, until I see liquidity actually get appropriated with more assets in the higher price ranges than what we currently have, then I'm going to suspect that we'll just have heightened volatility on the high side and regular volatility on the low side. pretty much anybody that makes a buy right now is going to be the winner of the slippage at this moment. And then anybody else that makes a buy or a sell after that is going to have higher slippage and push us right back into the lower slippage again, giving the next person that makes the next buy or sell more assets, right, than what anybody else would have. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to me to see what happens. I heard that Godwale came in and bought today, Hex, and that could be the reason why these are happening. I didn't get any verification from it.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I think I just came into I was in and out of the group, but I think I just caught tailwind of that. So far just a rumor, huh? But I wonder, I mean, we should probably, I mean, he's got a lot of wallets, so not it's not like super easy to find, right?
Well, I mean, only in this aspect that he usually uses certain wallets to make his purchases from, and certain wallets to make his stakes in. Like the C5 wallet is usually the one that makes the purchases, and the 666D is usually the one that makes the stakes. But that doesn't ring true. I mean, he can do whatever the hell he wants at any time. And there are multiple other wallets that I don't track, but other people probably do. So yeah, who knows? He's probably got way more ETH than what I thought. But let me see. Today, yeah, today, Godwale moved. Hold on, let me go back and look. He moved 1,000 ETH at 7:13 a.m. ETH right now.
What is he gonna do with that Hex? Makes like a huge HSI right before the auction starts, and then
1,344.
Thank you.
I don't want him to do that before the auctions, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's not good for us, but maybe it could be something he wants to do.
It's like $1,344,000.
Yeah, bro.
I think like, okay, if that does happen with the Godwale and he does do the Icosa thing right before, um, I feel like anytime the yield, the price appreciation to the upside appreciation is greater, so I feel like it kind of balances out. So it's not like a bad thing.
You know, Godwale doesn't have to use the staking protocols. If the Godwale knows, because there's going to be a large majority of, well, all of the stakers that are involved in Icosa staking protocols are going to be getting this inflation, including Godwale and the Hedron staking pool. If you know that the majority of the community are potential nitwits, right, that need money, right, because Pulse Chain and all these other things, right, and they're not necessarily nitwits, but maybe nitwitty in there, they don't know everything, because that's tough to know everything, right? So even I might be a nitwit in certain respects too when it comes to some of this stuff, maybe, right? It all depends if I didn't like pay attention to something. That someone like Godwale would, like, if I sat next to Godwale, I would readily admit that I am a nitwit in comparison to him or her, whoever it is, because they obviously have the availability of changing the narrative whenever they want. Now, anything that I had said, which I don't speak in definitive terms because of these things and the knowledge of knowing this, is that because of my maybe appropriation of making a definitive statement, that might change the narrative all of a sudden, because that person that heard that would be like, nope, no, I don't think so. This is going to be the way that I want it to be. I'm the one that's going to pump the price, and I'm the one that's going to provide liquidity in these particular ranges. And then I'm going to make sure that I shake the tree and all the nitwits fall out. If that makes sense. Like, Godwale can do that with Icosa. Go make a huge stake, get a fuck ton of Icosa, provide liquidity, everyone goes, holy shit, liquidity for Icosa on this particular pair went from 40,000 to $3 million all of a sudden. And they're like, shit, we can limited slippage, we could get out. We could sell all of our hex into this buyback function, get Icosa, and just sell the price of Icosa down, right? And then the community that's currently in a very new staking protocol that would love nothing less than to see discounts happen on Icosa to be able to just pick it up, and then the price will go right back up. Like if he appropriates assets on the high end to sell, but doesn't appropriate liquidity on the low end for other people to sell into, then you're going to have high volatility to the downside. So people are going to come think that they have all this liquidity to sell into. They're going to sell into it. They're going to slip themselves. They're going to fall. They're going to lose a position in hex because they use their hex to buy Icosa through the buyback. And then Godwale can pump the price of Icosa too, whenever he wants at that moment as well. So having that type of power to be able to shake the tree and get the unknowledgeable people out, the ones that say that they're speculators, but really, honestly, they're traders, and they're a detriment to the community. You can shake the tree really fucking hard and give them more than availability, which isn't even going to hurt them, but give them the availability to get out. If you want to get out, now is the time. At the bottom of the market, go for it. If that's what you want to do, because there's so many people that are complaining, right? When Pulse Chain, when this, the sacrifice was so long ago. I took a loan against my home, which I should not have done because I thought it was coming out in 2 months. Well, that's nobody else's fault but your own. So we can shake the tree a little harder. Shake the fuck out of it. Here's your money. Go away. Buy in later when everything gets better, which is fine. This is the way the games are played. And Godwale is, I mean, there's so many options for that gentleman or lady to do amongst all these assets, using all the other assets to even shake hexagons out of their positions, which is always good. Get them out of the underlying asset, and then we'll just let price go up. And the rest of us that are speculating, that are participating and using the code and the protocols for what they are, will be rewarded for such things. And if you know that this inflation thing is about to happen and there's going to be a bunch of people that are already in the Icosa staking protocol that's getting Icosa every day, they're going to go from 2 or 3 Icosa a day to 50 Icosa a day. They may think that they may end their stake when the minimum stake length comes to fruition. Or some people that aren't really aware what's going on and realize that this inflation is going to happen day after day after day after day after day. They're going to go, oh, this might not happen tomorrow. They'll EES their stake. They're out of the staking pool. Now, the rest of us that stayed in there that knows what's going on get higher rewards because there's less people in the pool. We just kind of go up the rank because all these other things are happening, which generally happens even if there is no staking protocol, right? Like other people, they just kind of, this is the way that meme tokens would normally work, with shaking the tree and getting them out, right? The only way to make money in that is speculating for a very, very long time and having market makers that are actually appropriating costs and defending certain price zones. Like that has to happen. Otherwise, meme coin go dead, right? With staking protocols, it adds a whole nother layer of game stuff to it on how you can do these things. You can play the same old games that you'd normally play with the tokens that have zero anything to do with it other than speculative value of holding. But you can do all these other things under certain timelines, rewarding those who were staked that didn't have the availability to hurt themselves. But knowing that there's people that don't stake, they hold liquid, wait for candles to happen so they can extract value out of the community, while the rest of us are like, look at this, prices are going up. And then the next day you're like, why are people selling? Like, why? Because that's what those traders were doing. And those are the ones that you want to make sure that they land on their head when you shake them out of the tree. And that could be some of the things that could happen here shortly. Or could be happening now. It could be the setup to what's happening now. But to know exactly what Godwale is doing,
But exactly Godwale you're saying, or can be any other whale?
Any whale. Any big whale that has a large amount of money. Like, let's say they sold the tops of Bitcoin, they sold the top of Ethereum, they sold the top of any asset that had a huge run up. and they're holding on to big fat stacks of money right now, and they're also involved in, I don't know, mining Bitcoin or mining or validating for the Ethereum network, and have big old stacks of asset too, right? Or like hexicans that have been mining hex for a long period of time, or they were early or whatever. Like if they're smart and they know they're involved with getting information on these types of things, which is tough sometimes for the Bitcoin, the long-term Bitcoiners, the long-term Ethereum, and even at this point in time, long-term hexicans. They're getting inundated by all sorts of people about all sorts of shit, about everything. And eventually they just they shut everything down, right? They just sit in a dark room and they don't want any more information. It's just too much, too many options to get wrecked. So even the good stuff that they should be paying attention, they can't, because they already shut it down. They don't know. So that's going to happen. There are certain people out there that don't. But yeah, any of the whales, anyone who has large amounts of assets on both sides, ones that see the potential, like in Icosa, and they're setting up their positions now to make sure that they can defend stuff that they care about.
And why Polymaximus cannot be that whale?
Say that one more time, please.
I'm asking if we can consider a whale a Polymaximus contract.
Sure. I mean,
it can be the Polymaximus, be the one who shakes the three.
If it had no, they're holding on to one side. They're just holding on to assets. They're a liability.
Okay.
As long as they get involved with the process and actually use the staking protocols where they're locking it up for long periods of time, then for that period of time that they're locked up into it, they are not a liability.
Hey, executioner, I just came up with an idea how to make people dump their WhatsApp.
I like your name change, by the way. That's not appropriate at all. What is it?
I'm sure
go ahead.
Listen, how about just scaring people that they're gonna die? If they're just like, it's gonna go all to waste. As soon as they're in good profit, it could just tell them, hey, you might fucking die, in a week or a month. I mean, just enjoy yourself. Redeem this thing and enjoy your shortest life.
It's
something along the line.
We usually work so hard to try to figure out mental ways to put people in the right mentality of how things can be, how they probably are, so they don't do things like this. But yet now, because of that WhatsApp pool, we are trying to find out alternative means to figure out how to chop the damn tree down instead of shake it. It's interesting, and I'm down for that. Like, it's not responsible. It's not appropriate. It's
or just goofing around.
Well, yeah, and I'm a proponent of it. But being an admin for the asset, like I particularly can't participate in that behavior, even though I have, and I really shouldn't, because I've made some tweets. I've made some Twitter tweets about people should get rid of them because I heard that it'll make your dick small, and that got some laughs.
Yeah,
but that's all I put.
That was cute.
Yeah. But I mean, with this yield that's coming out, when all this Hedron starts getting burned through this liquidation auctions, I think that the yield, when it gets to a 1-for-1, so like anyone who spent $1,000 and print one B share, B point or whatever the hell it is for the WhatsApp, for 1 billion points, that when they have $1,000 back, they might burn it.
Yes.
If it's $1,100,
especially if they got the premonition, that the train's gonna hit them, the next day or something.
You should not wish that on people.
Well, I tell you what, I'll promise you guys that if I know my days are numbered and I got like few of those left, yeah, I'll leave some for my daughter, but like probably one, if it's juicy, I'm gonna cash out and spread it among you guys and just get some big titty, lap dance or something like that, before I kick it
I
in the
will
calendar.
burn mine right now just for you.
Yay!
Hey, it's my birthday. Somebody please burn their Watsa for me, please, just in commemoration for my birthday. And I'm sure that you guys like me, so you guys might do that. And then tomorrow I come back on and be like, hey guys, it's my birthday. I just wanted you to every day. There's some new people in here. I just wanted to let you know.
Happy burning once a day.
Hey, it's your birthday.
And which whale is the one who is dumping on us every time that Hadron is trying to go up? They are selling Hadron as crazy.
I have no idea. I noticed that a lot of
It's
people,
not.
It's probably
not only
it just went up so
it's
much.
not only the traders, I think.
a lot of it is though, because you notice that they buy back in. Like if they sell 40 grand worth, then they're in there buying 39 grand worth when it went down and getting the same amount of assets that they had before, or stacking a whole nother billion into their stack. I've noticed a lot of that going on.
Are these characters getting Ixa also, or just Hadron?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not watching them that closely, I guess.
There was wallets yesterday. We had hundreds of billions of Hedron, like 150 billion Hedron and 100 billion Hedron, 50 billion Hedron, and they all swapped their, or some of the wallets that I watched, they swapped their Hedron stacks for hex stacks.
Yesterday, you're saying.
Yeah, yesterday.
Oh, there you go. And that doesn't really affect the price as much as selling.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. As long as they're using the hex pair, the hex hedron pair, then it isn't going to affect the hedron price as much as it would by selling directly for USDC. Yeah. And it'll save you gas from not having to sell hedron in USDC and then go back in and use the USDC to buy hex again.
It's gonna be good for PulseX. It's gonna be good for PulseX and Pulse Chain. When we can just like fucking every day swapping Hedron for Hex and Icosa like nonstop and burning. Just get that burning going on. So it will pump the PLS and PLSX.
But yeah, to support the idea that the majority of people who trade for stables, yeah, their wallets look like just trader wallets.
Generally, those are the ones that I tend to look at too, are just the USDC trader wallets to see what they're up to, and kind of get an idea of like the trading volume, how much of it was that, because that's important to liquidity providers, is 24-hour trading volume on certain pairs that they're providing, of course. Pay you a lot of fees, so sometimes traders are good. If you don't have market makers that are happy with the assets that you guys get to enjoy and speculate on, then you wouldn't have a community. There would be no Uniswap pair for you to trade on, because there would be no market makers doing it. You guys would have to figure out how to do it on your own. As soon as you don't incentivize the market makers for those types of things, then they won't stick around for long. And they're the whole reason why price can go up or down or around or wherever the hell it goes.
Oh, by the way, you guys try to do matcha limit orders on matcha last couple days?
People were having issues with it, but I don't.
Even with
Yeah,
beauty
I
stuff, I think.
I saw from two people. I posted something, and two people concurred with me. Yeah, they their transactions were getting failed too. So I contacted them, and they said they're looking into this issue because they've been hearing from people about it. So I was just curious if anybody here had this problem.
Fortunately for like Alex and us admins, there's nothing we can do about that stuff. Like that's the decentralized exchange that has those issues, and you guys have to take it up with them. Or you can just figure out how to make V3 single-sided liquidity pairs, and then it won't be the automatic thing like a limit order does, but as soon as price goes up into your asset you're selling or goes down into the USDC or ETH or whatever it is that you're using to buy the asset with, and then you just pull the liquidity, it's the same thing. You're catching an average of
Yeah,
the
man.
cost in which you moved.
I don't even
Which
know
is
what
low.
1.5 is. You're asking me about V3. Way over my head.
Yeah, it gets confusing, of course. Yeah.
Hey, Executioner, what's your thoughts on Polymaximus?
I think that it'll lock up Hedron for 15 years.
Won't it also create a massive whale for Icosa?
How?
Aren't they staking that? I don't know a lot about it. That's why I was hoping you did.
Taking Hedron also. No?
Okay. Well, I can tell you what I know. I did talk to Dipcatcher about 2 weeks ago. So and he was writing the code at the time because he wanted some information on how a lot of this stuff worked. So I was telling him some stuff. And I was also asking him questions on how he wanted to develop the poly thing. So there are these guys called executors, a third party, a middleman, counterparty risk that's included in between the poly
Yeah,
that
we
he
know that.
and the actual utilization of the Hedron for it. So if those executors are successful petition versus us that are competing with them in winning any HSIs, then they're not going to turn those HSIs back into the buyback function. They're going to hold on to them throughout the fruition of the 15 years. And the one that's a 555 that ends the longest term is how long all the rest of them will end. So if there's some that they buy that are only a year long, when that particular year ends, they're going to cash out the month, not cashed out, but they're going to end the stake, take the hex and the hedron from it, and then restake the hex back into the hex protocol again for the rest of the duration of the 15 years, right? So it may be 13 more years or 14 more years or whatever it may be at that time. And then end that one again at the end of the longest one that's there. So they will all come to an end eventually at the exact same time, even if there were 1 year HSIs, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. With the hedron that they get from it, they're going to stake that into the Icosa, the hedron staking pool on the Icosa contract protocol. If those executors, so they're going to try to use all of their hedron in the purchasing of that. Let's say that we're just too much competition for them. They have to have a cutoff, right? Where they're not going to bid into the premiums to a certain extent where they're losing the availability of continuing to keep competing. So eventually there's going to be a certain point where they pull away from it. They say, no, we're not going to bid on this one anymore. We're going to the next one, right? Dipcatcher has software programs that he's created for his executors to be able to utilize. Like only they have the logins to the specific software that connects to the front end. So that way it'll like show them the most appropriate ones to bid on, the ones that's best for the poly holders to have, ones that might actually create some sort of premium, ones that have 10x, 9x, or a bonus on them. Most of them don't have enough hex in them to actually have like a hex bonus to it, so that doesn't matter. So they do have some sort of an advantage in that respect to know which ones to go after that benefit them. Other people that are in competition may or may not need that type of software to be able to know which ones they want to go for. However, it's still going to be fucking chaos, in my opinion, when all that stuff happens. And every day at 000 UTC, there's another couple hundred that are getting thrown into the mix, meaning that people may not even had enough time within 24 hours to actually cycle and go through and default and get these auctions going. By the time that they get there. However, any of the ones that, let's say that they don't win in the competition, they end up with maybe like 100 HSIs, and they're stuck there holding on to an ass load of Hedron. Then they're going to take the ass load of Hedron and they're going to put it into the Hedron staking protocol for Icosa at that time, and they're going to hold it for the duration of 15 years as well. So all that Hedron will get locked up for 15 years. Even when it hits their minimum staking length on there, they're not going to end the stake and do anything with it. They're just going to keep building assets. They're going to lock in their share rate and they're going to keep it that way. And at the very end of it, they'll hand out the rewards to the people that come back with their poly and actually redeem their rewards at that time. Even the maxi guys, Gold Key and Dipcatcher, are extremely ecstatic about this. They even think that this is going to be bigger than their maxi protocol, better than their maxi protocol, all because they're adding Icosa to the mix. So you'll get Hex, Hedron, and Icosa potentially in the end result when you actually cash that out. Now, at the end of 15 years, which is great for the rest of us that are individually just going to do what we normally are doing and participate the way that we are. We're not going to get involved in added contract risk or the potential of having, third party risk involved between it. I still see it as a potentially really good thing for the assets, for all of us and them included.
And if you weren't a big back holder, you would think the same.
Yeah, and if you don't have like a whole lot of money to afford gas fees, and you know that to go in there and compete, that you're going to be spending gas fees on it, which the way that Alex has that set up is the next person that overbids you pays a higher amount of Hedron to send back the bid that person originally made. So there is no extra gas fee that's appropriated to anybody to overbid somebody and send them their assets back. But when you go bid again with the assets getting reappropriated back to your wallet when you were overbid on, you will have to pay another gas fee, right? And then if you are overbidding somebody else, not only will you pay another gas fee, but you'll pay a higher Hedron cost to cover the other person's gas fee to send their assets back to their wallet. So it leaves a one-man queue. It doesn't leave like 100 people all stuck in queue on the one thing for the 24 hours until it ends. It allows for you as a competitor to have your stuff put back in your wallet and you can move on or rebid on that same one or move to the next one or whatever it is, right? Whatever you want to do. So yeah, with poly, if you don't want to get involved with all that, you don't have enough money to spend money on the gas fees and stuff like this, then it might be incentivizing to you to get involved in poly and have this extra thing. If you weren't going to bid on any of the HSIs at all, and you wanted to speculate into poly, it might be a good thing for you to get involved with in some way, just participate in it, right? But I wouldn't do it in like a whole heave-ho your whole bag into the fucking thing. That's dumb in every respect to do with anything.
Thank you.
Me in particular, after my conversation, and kind of the reason why I shy away from it a little bit from talking about it is because me in particular, I'm not going to participate in it, and I don't want to influence anybody else, right? I don't like added contract risk, and I don't like that there's these executors in between, because let's say I was an executor, I can go to a 1 T-share stake, and potentially, as long as there's no fail safes, which if I know Gold Dip Catcher, he's way smarter than this, so there might be fail safes that I'm not aware of. But at this point in time, in my head, until it's made clear that it's something other than what I think it is, that one executor could fuck the whole thing, right? Or there could be 30 executors, and only one of them, it takes one of them to fuck the whole thing by logging into the software and utilizing the smart contract that actually makes the bids, meaning that I have access to hit the button that says make bid, right? But I get to choose what the next bid is. So I could take everybody's hedron that they put in there and bid it on the 1 T-share thing. I could spend $1 trillion fucking hedron on the lowest, shittiest fucking HSI that there is in there, winning that thing by a large margin and fucking everybody in Poly. Everybody.
You think that executor is dumb like this?
No. It wouldn't be a thing of them being dumb. It would be a thing of them being malicious.
If they were an individual holder, I mean, more power to them, because that would just mean more hedron burn. And then the people who are individuals, states would get it.
Well, I mean, well, think about this. See, like if I was an executor and I was also planning as an individual to bid on certain stakes, I could potentially use that to my advantage, don't you think? Make sure that the Poly guys aren't bidding on the HSIs that I want, and I could use his software to make sure that I could pinpoint the ones that I want as an individual, and then keep the Poly away from competing with that, because I would be one of the people that would be the competition of be the Poly competitor versus myself. No, I wouldn't compete against myself. I'd make sure that they stayed away from it, and I would have less competition, and I would know where the competition was going.
And if I don't have a big bag, I will put my hedron to the team who can gather a lot of it to compete against you. You get it?
I'm talking
It's
about
fair also.
I'm talking about if I was an executor. I'm telling you, like, what the.
I get it, but people will want to gather to bid against also other people, man.
Yep, and you lose your position as an individual to have the power to do the competition on your own. You lose all your power. You're giving that power away to somebody else. You're adding a middleman. That's all I'm saying, and that's what I don't like. And I actually like it.
Do you think there is other way to do it without executor?
No, I don't, because you can't. I talked to him about this, and like I said, Dip Catcher, very smart dude, right? And like, I'm not going to talk shit about Poly. I'm not going to talk shit about Maximus or any of the stuff that they have, or about Dip Catcher or any of the people that are involved in there. I actually appreciate and like everything that they're doing, right? So that is not my intention, if that's what it seems like I'm doing here. That is not the case. I think that it's really good for the ecosystem. I think it's good for the smaller guys to be able to have those options. It's just me and my personal, if you want to talk to me about what my personal like feelings are about a thing, I'm not going to fucking lie to you. I'm going to tell you that it doesn't suit my needs as an individual personally. And that's what I'm going to tell you. But you're asking me these things.
You weren't sound bad. You were good.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. Because I'm not going to be that guy, right? If I saw something bad with it, then yeah, I would say something about it. But for fuck's sake, guys, I can't find anything really negatively externally bad about it, other than the potential
counterparty risk, of course. The middleman.
Well,
we don't want middleman, of course. anywhere.
Well, I was telling Dipcatcher, like, what he should do is go get his local buddies. Go get somebody like from his town or from somebody else that maybe doesn't even get invested. Like, they don't have Hex, they don't have Hedron, they don't have Icosa, they don't have none of this shit. And teach them what it is to be an executor and only get their knowledge wrapped around how it is to bid in an auction sense, right? People know how auctions work, right? It's not that fucking tough. Now, just put it to the reasons why it would be important for this. Have his software that says in this auction of the bidding, these are the ones that you should go for, because this thing is telling you that this is what would be the best for the poly, community. And then just do your thing. Don't go crazy on the bids on them. Like, don't go too far over the premium if that's the case. But if it's one that we really want, we might have a certain premium for it. Other than that, just go to the hex value and then move on. And if we get some, great. If we don't, we have another alternative, right? That we don't need the executor for. We'll just go put it into the protocol that's currently there, and then the rewards will work themselves out in the end of the 15 years, which I love the whole idea. And I'm sure that even he wishes that he didn't have to have these middlemen involved. But you just can't add logic to automatic functions on the blockchain. It's not possible. So you have to have some sort of entity or middleman that has a brain that can think previous to hitting the button manually. Unfortunately. That's just the way blockchain is. You cannot put logic to automated processes. You can't. You can have smart contracts that talk to smart contracts that talk to smart contracts. You can have bots that do specific things when specific triggers happen. Price go to a certain level, trigger happens, bot does thing. But the bot can't go, well, what if this other thing was to happen on top of this, and then I don't do that instead, and I take an advantage over here because there's this other thing that's happening, and I do this instead. Logically, that would make more sense than just the minor stupidity of get to a certain trigger and then act, which is kind of what is needed in a situation that happens down to a 5-minute counter at the end of the 24 hours when the competitions are really ramping up, that it needs to know when to fucking stop doing what it's doing.
I think it's going to be interesting when this poly starts and we know the holders. We can measure the holders of poly and the Hedron contract, and we will have an idea of what can happen.
Yeah, and it also maybe like creates, not maybe, but I think it will, since you have these executors taking this large bag of Hedron directly into the competition of these liquidations, it's make cause for more Hedron to be burned. Like, more HSIs are actually going to get bid up to that premium cost, and maybe even over the premium cost, because they bid certain HSIs from the lowest extent, potentially 15x less than the actual value of what's in the HSI. Start there. Bid your way up, bid your way up, bid your way up, get to the price of where the hex is at. Now, one of us that's not in poly, that doesn't have a protocol that says stop, we go, we want this anyway, and we overbid that, putting it at a higher premium, means that more Hedron is burned. And then you move on to the next one. The same process could keep happening over and over and over and over again. Do I think that that'll incentivize people to use the buyback function again? Nope. I do not think that it will. I think that the cheaper that they go and the less Hedron that's actually burned, the more the buyback function will be used, causing for individuals to get the inflation. But in the other aspect of it, when people aren't using the buyback function and causing for them to actually burn more Hedron in the competition of it, like we were just speaking of previously, that it is going to cause a higher payout to the stakers in the Hedron, Icosa, and the Watson pool. So there's not really a negative externality here. Somebody's winning, and it's generally the staker.
And on that day, which one? I think Icosa staker can benefit more than Hedron staker,
as long as buyback function is being used, because then not only is your yield in Icosa going to be increased because of the burning of all the Hedron, but because people use the buyback function, the contract is going to borrow that Hedron and spit it to the Icosa stakers, and only that pool. And then the Watsa pool is going to get a bonus to the Icosa yield for it being a 5555. They get a 10% bonus for that. The Watsa pool gets
I have a question. So we want that they don't keep the stake.
They do keep the stake. You talking about Poly?
No. I'm talking general.
Yeah. Best case, you're right. Best case scenario, they use the buyback function. They burn as much as they can, and even at a premium, and then they just go get Icosa with it anyway, and use the buyback function. Would be like the double whammy to us.
That would not hurt the Icosa price a lot.
It should be in their app.
Say that again, Sid.
Oh, sorry, guys.
If you think that buyback function will not hurt the price of Icosa,
it all depends on what people do. There's not a whole lot of liquidity. They could go provide liquidity and allow for people to utilize their assets to get out, get in, or whatever. They may sell half of what they had and go in and provide liquidity, getting fees. They could go sell it for hex and provide liquidity where the price is sitting at a premium generally. You would think that at that point in time that there may be people that are closing the loop and taking assets maybe at a higher value with their Icosa and getting more hex than what they originally had and making another HSI, and then getting more Icosa than that to increase their position in the pool, especially when they know that the inflationary period is like ramping up at that time, right? If it's 15, 20x yield than what you were normally getting as today, you're going to want a higher position of the pool. That way you can get higher yield for a longer period of time. That's why that add function, add Icosa and add Hedron function, in my opinion, is brilliant.
And also on it, the yield will be random as well. That's why I'm doing a scatter plot, because the yields, you know what you're going to get based on the seed burn, but there'll be times that it would bounce up and down. It's not like the T-share rate match, you get 6.4 a day, blah blah blah. It could, and then as they get recycled back in, it's rinse and repeat. Yeah. And then the borrowing functioning starts as the Hedron price goes up, and it's
I'm glad I asked. I thought it was actually that they were going to allocate. I thought it was similar to, what Magic Carpet Ride did with the Pulse Sex and Liquid Loan Sacrifice, where that's what I thought it was. I didn't realize they had the ability to hold these for 15 years or go ahead and burn them for Icosa. I hope they hold them.
Yeah, their intention is to hold them for the whole 15 years. And all of the Hedron that gets put into Poly to get the Poly token in the first place is going to be held too. Right? Technically. They're going to bid, they're going to burn it, right, forever in the ones that they win. And then they're going to hold it in the staking protocol to get Icosa if not, right? So no sell pressure until 15 years comes to an end and it goes out to the community. Then who knows, right? Like, who knows what people do at that point in time. But we know the intentions of the protocol and of the Maximus guys. Like, we know what they're going to do. And it's not sell pressure. They're not hurting the community. They're not hurting the asset. And they're not doing any of that stuff. It's all pretty positive, as a matter of fact, giving people more options. Like, we love more options, right? So good. It's good. You stirred the pot, Christy. Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't know anything about it. Now I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not something. I'm actually excited and hope they do well. It's probably not something I'll do, but because as a holder, yeah. But hey, oh shoot, I was going to ask you something. Oh, so the HSIs have that 24-hour, that 5-minute last bid, right? So technically, we might not see the 13th being the biggest day of the burn. It might be the 14th. They can't extend after that first 24 hours, correct?
Yeah, like pretty much on the 14th, that won't even be the day. Because unless all of us were all sitting on the trigger, right? Like I got the first one, you got the second one, Hamish got the third one, Zexican got the fourth one, and so on and forth. And all of us, as soon as 000 UTC happened and it went from a default bid to an actual button you can push and pay gas for, and all of us at the exact same time hit the button and started the 24-hour countdown. Even at that point in time, it didn't happen until just after 000 UTC, meaning that there's no possible way for them to actually end by the next 000 UTC. It'll be after that happens that the actual bids will come to a conclusion, right? So the 13th, the default will become available. The 14th will actually be pretty much availability competition the whole 24 hours into the next day. So the 15th is going to be when the actual yield is going to hit you on that next 000 UTC, which to me is 7 o'clock in the evening, around there, since I'm Central Time Zone, on the 15th. And it probably won't even be that, because there's going to only be so many people actually participating and actually liquidating these things. Like there may only be like 1,000 of them that get like defaulted on within the first hour, leaving you another 1,500, 2,000 of them that didn't even get touched yet. And then by the second hour, it's going to take you, all of you guys, that whole next hour to get through the next 1,000, if that was the case. And then the next 500 within 4 hours, you're going to have. So that will give, if that was the case, then by the next 000 UTC, when the 5-minute counters start happening, when people actually start bidding against each other to try to win them in the last few minutes, that you'll have a depiction of how long those ends are going to happen on the end of the next day, right, of the 000 UTC, which would be the 14th, would be when all the end competition happens, and then the 15th, which in my understanding will be when you actually do get paid that yield from the first initial ones that are coming out. So it is a process.
Hey, Execution, I just actually wanted to step back a sec because I had a question about Poly before we move on. And you said you talked to Dipcatcher. Has anyone brought up I don't want to FUD, it's just literally something I've been thinking about, and actually like the guys. I don't want to get into problems. There's always kind of a concern running around crypto that it's a security. When they start implementing a person that's going to make decisions and actions for the Poly pool, do they start running into the problem that the Poly token could be considered a security?
I think that they are not providing any expectations of profit off of this. Like they've pretty much well stated that the executors could go out and win 0 of them, not at all, but they have a backup plan that they'll go get involved with the staking protocol. And there's still no expectations of the staking protocol because, as we can tell, there's so many different directions that everything can go. Generally, it's all in a positive light. If you try to bring something negative to me, I can probably show you a reason how it's going to benefit other people when it comes to the Hedron Hex Icosa ecosystem. And then when those guys get involved, I can probably extrapolate another positive thing out of that, but so many other negative externalities that could possibly happen as well. So there will be generalized no expectations of profit off of the work of others in that respect. I don't believe that they're providing a CEO or a COO or a CFO. These people are not getting paid to be executors. They are voluntarily doing it.
Okay. Like I said, I like the work they're doing. I'm kind of like you. I'm not big on the idea of a middleman, but I definitely appreciate all the effort that they're putting into this, and I want them to succeed. So it sounds like they've at least thought about it, or you've thought about it, etc. I just want to make sure the question had been asked, so they don't kind of end up in hot water down the road.
Yeah, because like somebody had brought it up on Twitter that I should be an executor, which I was like, what the fuck is this? At that point in time, like, I don't even know what this is.
Right.
So of course, immediately, I got into a chat with Dipcatcher Not even intentionally. I think we were talking about this stuff, and he came into a chat that I was already in, and we just started hashing it out a little bit, talking about some of this stuff unintentionally. And so we got into those conversations, and I was like, look here, man, like nobody gets my time for free anyway. So I won't be participating in that, the executor thing anyway, because you can't afford me, even if you were paying people. And since you're not, I know how these auctions are going to work, and there ain't no fucking way I'm staying up for 5 days straight to just make sure that these poly people are taken care of. Or longer, 14 days, potentially 14 days. He needs to have a lot of executors to make sure to cover the time periods of. Now, it'll be a lot easier, like I said, if us as a community were able to go through all 3,000 of the first day's HSIs within 1 hour, let's say. That means that there's a lot less work, a lot less time, a lot less executors needed to be able to process the ones that they want to go for. But if it takes us 24 hours, and we're not even defaulting all of the 3,000 that are there yet, we're still in the process of defaulting all the other ones by the time 24 hours comes around, and then another 1,500 of them come whomping in on top of us.
Right.
That the executor is going to have to, through all the default processes of the 24 hours, you better have enough of them to cover the end duration of the actual competition at the end of the 24 hours to cover the whole entire timeline. So you're going to be up for days if you don't have enough people. And I'm like, you really can't afford me if you want that to happen. And I don't know. Nobody knows. And even they don't know. So it's better to have a bunch of people ready to go just in case, and don't pay them. So that way they can avoid all those other things, which means that, like I said, they should go find some people that are local to them, so they can just come over to their house and like get on their computers and have access to this software that he has proprietary to him, so he doesn't have to send it out to people, because God forbid you have to go sue somebody because now they copied and pasted your shit and forked it over to this other thing, changed it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, he's taking a lot of risk with that shit. And I was telling him the same thing. I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, you're doing some good stuff here, but you got to watch out. And he's like, don't worry, I got this shit handled. I'm like, okay, all right. I just needed you to tell me that. Okay. You know?
Yeah. Best of luck to him. I think it's a ambitious project.
And I care about this community and the Hex and the Hedron and the Icosa protocol stuff like a lot. So I can tell you now that I don't have intentions to go tearing people's asses about certain things and have all this negative stuff that I see and all this stuff, because if I did, I would. But I mean, in the reality of it, like, I definitely did go with that mentality. Like, what are you doing? Like, you better make sure that you got this shit right. Because if you're messing around with this stuff that I'm involved in with this community, like, I will go to bat for all of them. And I will tear you to fucking shreds if you even get in the way of the stuff that we're currently working on. Right. And it just ended up not being that. Right. Like, I didn't even have to go into that whole thing, which is not even appropriate, not necessary, right? Sometimes even I get into those realms of not being very appropriate and be like, fuck you and fuck you, you're cool, I'm out, type shit.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. It's something I might think about. I just wanted to make sure someone somewhere had brought it up with him. But it sounds like it's at least something that's been thought about. And cool. Man,
yeah.
thanks. And
like Alex's point of view is, because we were like, obviously, what do you think about this? Like, and he said that even he thought it was going to be very difficult and very interesting to understand how they were going to do it, which is kind of mind-boggling to me, that it'd be like, you can't wrap your head around how they're going to do it either. And he's just like, I'm being lazy. I don't want to deal with it.
He's got other stuff he's got to be working on.
Yeah, he's like, I'm an innovator. I make new things. They are pooling guys. They take other people's ideas and they try to help the small guy, which he doesn't see negative things with it. So be it. And if that's how he feels, then I'll put the kid gloves on and I'll go in ready to swing, but I ain't going to swing yet until I get some info. Right. And now I took the kid gloves off and here we are. I'm good now.
Cool.
Yeah, appreciate the questions, guys.
Yeah.
Dip Catcher's live right now. If you guys want to go raid him, bug him, I'm sure he would appreciate the views.
And maybe even if you guys do have concerns, maybe like I'm not gonna go in there and bother him right now. Is he writing code? Is that what he's doing right now, Jawa?
No, I can't watch those. Those are too boring for me. No, he's just looking at hex price. He is Dip Catcher after all. He's predicting whether we're at the bottom or not.
Oh Jesus. You can't predict stuff. I need to sit that kid down and maybe tell him a few things because him and I don't talk enough. He shouldn't do that stuff. And I do know that like when he is coding, that you're probably not going to get any of your questions answered because he's so involved in the process of what he's doing that he very rarely even looks up at the screen to see what people are saying. He's not there for that type of education. He's more there to, if you can understand what he's doing, then you'll learn some stuff, but he ain't breaking it down. Remember, Jawa, when Alex was talking about doing something like that, about making a program or a video thing that will explain to people how Solidity works and how like Viper protocols are and things like that? Maybe you don't, but Alex certainly was like hinting around doing those types of things to try to teach people how to become programmers, coders, and things like this. But Dipcatcher is he's already doing it, I guess. Well, he is allowing for access for you to see him write code. I don't know how much education is really going into it. Like he may explain to you, like, this is what this is what this code that I just wrote does. But then he goes and clicks on a bunch of things and then copies and pastes other things and implements it in between. And he doesn't really I've watched a little bit of it, and I found that there's certain nuances of things that he's doing that he doesn't explain, which would, for the layman's, would completely be lost at that moment in time. It'd be like ripping pages out of a book and then telling people to read it. And then obviously they don't get the full story type situation, which I think that Alex, the way that he is kind of OCD when it comes to those things, like he doesn't speak until everything has been thought of and appropriated to people's maybe questions that they have are already answered when he does things. And then Dipcatcher just wants to be helpful. That's what his thing is. He just wants to get out there, be helpful, and do some stuff. So that's what he's doing. I wouldn't be out there trying to predict the fucking bottom. And that's for damn sure. We're trying to suspect that there's correlation to be able to see that Bitcoin made a move, therefore all the other assets are going to do the same thing. It's all up to liquidity. And who's providing what liquidity on what assets that are correlating them to each other. And unless you have a very well knowledge of that and you're looking across every single one, which is hard to do as a single person because there's so many pairs, then you're probably barking up and down the wrong tree. Telling people stuff that you probably think you do know what you're talking about, but in the reality of it, you're probably wrong. And people who listen to you are going to think bad things about you when you do that. So I like that guy though. So I like Dipcatcher. So I would hate to see him I don't know, tarnish his reputation, I guess, in that respect by getting into those price call stuff. I don't know. I'd have to go see it. Like if he's pulling up liquidity pairs and actually showing price and showing people where the thickest amount of liquidity is and where it becomes volatile, less volatile, going across all of the pairs and correlating them together as this is where price can and cannot go and how it can be sustained here or there, then I'd listen to it. I'd totally listen to it because I jive with that because that is how price is derived. But to go there and be like, oh, from recent fractals on this chart over here, because it's something that happened in the past, that this means that this could happen over here. Nope. That is wrong. And you should not do that.
Actually, do you mind if I ask a question about that? Because I'm kind of interested in learning more about liquidity pairs. We don't have to go into it too deeply, but I did see you posted some charts in the Telegram, and I saw one where like the price was kind of, the liquidity was thin on the Hex ETH pair, but it was still kind of thick on the Hex USDC pair. Does that mean, like, how does that matter? Whether it's thin on one pair versus thicker in the other? How does that affect the overall price?
I'm going to forward something that I have that's like incredibly detailed right now. And this is the Hedron USDC pair. And this pretty much explains how it works. Now you'd have to do this. You'd have to extrapolate this type of visual understanding to the price to every single pair that's connected to your assets. So as you look at liquidity, I have it turned on its side in this particular picture, which is kind of, I don't know if it's confusing or if it makes you have to turn your head to the right so you can look at it how you normally would.
For me, at least, I get it. I understand what's going on. Yeah.
Right. So I've pretty much changed the aspect ratio to fit the exact price on the chart.
Okay.
So as you can see on this particular one, how I said in the green box there that this is where the least amount of volatility is currently at, meaning that slippage is at like a negative 0.05%, right? Like almost none. Like you're getting more assets in this particular thickness than you would in any other, the yellow boxes or the red. As a matter of fact, the yellow boxes are going to cause higher slippage and more volatility. The red boxes, unsustainable for price to be at on the high side and the low side until the thickness of liquidity moves with the price.
So if there's thick liquidity in one pair but thin in the other, will Uniswap go through the thick pair to avoid slippage, even though there might be a higher fee because you're going through a couple different pairs? It'll still try and avoid the slippage from the thin liquidity?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you
So I see what you're talking about.
And if you're trying to buy a large amount of assets where the thick liquidity is currently at can't suffice to keep the slippage down, then it'll split your USDC or whatever it is you're buying with into the other pairs to utilize its volatility or less volatility to limit the slippage even further. So sometimes you'll see that it'll do a multi-send order across multiple pairs and use smaller amounts as it goes as the liquidity gets smaller in those other pairs.
Okay. So I understand now why you can't just look at a single liquidity pair. You don't, because the DEXs, I'm not just saying Uniswap, but I guess that's the one I use and I think is pretty popular. DEXs will they'll try and find it across all the pairs. And you kind of, if you're looking to see, extreme volatility, you kind of have to understand that any buyer is going to have to go through all of the liquidity pairs before you start seeing any significant price movement. Is that sort of what you're getting at?
Yeah, kind of. Yep. And it usually USDC or the stable token. Well, I guess in our ecosystem, USDC is the stable token.
Sure.
Is the pumper. It pumps green candles and it also makes big red candles too, because it's the majority of liquidity. So if you can dominate that through your purchases, then you can push the price around however you want, no matter what pairs are out there. As long as the USDC stable ones are the biggest pairs that are there. Right.
Because I think what I'm hearing you say is that just by convention or like everyone the biggest, thickest liquidity tends to be in the USDC pair. Let's just say Hex, because that's just where a lot of people have put the liquidity pairs.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense. Thanks. I appreciate that.
No problem. And usually market maker, like we don't tell people this stuff usually.
Right.
Because we want to have the pools of liquidity. We don't want a lot of competition in these price ranges and have a bunch of people come in there and dilute us.
Sure.
And it causes for traders to know exactly when price is going to be like at a certain place and when it's volatile and when they should pull their triggers.
Okay. Yeah.
Going and listening.
I'm interested. Sorry, I didn't interrupt it. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, talking about fractals and history of certain stuff does not suggest actual price movement in the future. Liquidity does.
Right.
So when you have somebody that's like, I know the da 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 because of a fractal and these things, and I've made all these correct calls and all this other stuff, then they might actually be looking at what I just showed you here, but they don't want to tell you that this is what they're looking at because they give away their advantage. Because I just made it understandable to you guys that it's pretty easy to understand. It's not as scientifically complicated as most people make it seem. So then they don't want you to know this stuff. So they talk about fractals, they talk about all these other things, maybe. And if these guys aren't looking at these things and doing this stuff, and they really are believing their bullshit about the fractal stuff, then you're carrying a loaded gun with a hair trigger in the front of your pants, ready to shoot.
Right. I've heard other people say this too. Is if you're making any sort of price prediction and not looking at liquidity, you're doing it wrong. And what you've and it makes sense to me, because that where the rubber meets the road is the market makers have to be there. Someone has to be there, or there's no market. So if there's no liquidity, like whatever liquidity is being provided, if there's that is fundamentally where the price comes from. Anything else that's building on that. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. That's exactly correct.
Cool.
Yeah, you don't want me in a TA analysis room.
I think TA is trying to capture market sentiment, which I'm not going to. That's a big rabbit hole. I'm not going to say pro or con, but I think so. Maybe there could be something that said that they're trying to predict. Yeah, there may be more buy pressure at this point, but again, I think you do need to look at the liquidity pools. Otherwise, you're going to have the information at best.
Well, I mean, like, let's look at that Hedron USDC thing that I was just showing you.
Sure.
If I told you that price was going to go up to 4 zeros and a 2, as you can see, there is no liquidity there. That's why I call it the most volatile, and price can't be sustained there. And that it was going to stay there, and then it was going to have another jump from the 402 to a 404, and before you know it, we're going to be at the ceiling price of Hedron, and we're going to take advantage of this arbitrage thing. I would have to go, not unless the market makers decide that that's going to happen. And if it goes too volatile, they're probably not going to move their assets. They're going to allow for price to come right back down into that comfortable zone. And this is an old thing. Like, this is what I have here is not current to what's happening today. So don't look at that. Like, I would have to go and right now do this whole thing over again with flipping the chart sideways and bringing it up to the price and and all this other stuff right now to make it relevant to all of you guys.
I get it. It's just for instructional purposes. I understand.
Yes,
yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, I guess that's where you get those wicks where people buy above the liquidity. It might spike super high, but it almost takes nothing for it to. Any minor sell is going to shoot it right back down again because there's marginal liquidity at that price.
Yep, that's why I call the thickness of liquidity is the most magnetizing spot, and it almost is like a magnet. The price wants to go into those particular regions. Feels safe there. Market AMMs don't have long-term memory; they have short-term memory, and this is the reason why.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm interested down the road. It sounds like you're doing it yourself, of becoming a liquidity provider, and I played around with it a little bit, and not in any meaningful way, but I'm really interested in learning more about it, because I think it's just really interesting. It's where the rubber meets the road in terms of the market. I just think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, when I started learning about it, Uniswap was relatively new. It was a new thing. So I took interest on learning how it drives price. And me and my buddy spent a lot of money to add liquidity positions and just derive data. Like, we had spreadsheet after spreadsheet. He had numbers and I had Excel. He's a Mac guy and I wasn't.
I think I'm kind of in the early stages of doing the same. Yeah, I'm making small positions.
Yes.
I know I'm losing money, but I'm just getting information. Yeah.
Well, if we wanted to talk about actually providing liquidity, the amount of information that I just showed you is just the tip of the iceberg, because you're going to need to be paying attention and tracking not only all the pairs to know where price can go, but you're also tracking 24-hour volumes, TVL, and things like this. So that way, you know, it's even an advantage to be involved in that particular pair in the first place.
Mhm.
Because if I was providing liquidity across a certain pair and it had zero volume for a 24-hour day, guess how much I got in fees for that day.
Yeah, that's the stuff I'm starting. If you're like the percentage of your contribution to the overall value locked is important. How much volume on a given day? Those are all calculations you need to make versus, the cost of your money being there versus somewhere else, and the cost of making the pool itself. If you don't track those things, you're going to lose money.
Yep, and with V3, it makes it a little more interesting because like I can stack on top of a guy, and now him and I share this certain percentage of the pool. But there can be other people who have spread their ranges out further than what we were, reducing their risk of impermanent loss. Why I have concentrated smaller bands of liquidity through certain price ranges that increase my risk of impermanent loss, but also increases my pool percentage where now I'm gaining more fees because I have done data analysis on 24-hour volumes through certain ranges of price across all. Actually, I'll be honest with you. We got to the point where we realized that these were the things, and we started creating Excel spreadsheets that took API data and appropriated a lot of the information to us. So really all we needed to do after a certain 24-hour period is update the information, and it told us everything.
Yeah, man, that's funny. I was thinking there might be I should figure out how to automate my data collection because I've just been looking at charts and putting it in directly. It sounds like, this was sounds like I'm moving in the right direction. I'm doing the same thing.
And it's a great time too because the gas costs for Ethereum are particularly low. Back in the time when we were doing these things, like gas costs were fucking out.
Yeah,
they were not appropriate, and we didn't care. So technically, in having this education, which I can provide to you guys for free, we spent a lot of money. We wasted a lot of money just by entering liquidity positions and leaving liquidity positions. It was sometimes more than the fees that we actually garnered in the first place.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyways, cool, man. I really do appreciate you sharing this information. Like, I recognize you're doing it for free, and that's awesome, man. Thank you very much.
No problem. I'm not trying to make no money off of you guys. I don't care for that. Gain the advantage. Well, here's the thing. Like, I understand this. If you guys are getting involved in these protocols and these staking mechanisms during the highest inflationary periods and the lowest liquidity of the assets that we're involved in, then you guys are probably going to be the next people who have to provide liquidity. You guys are going to have to learn these things if you want to get in and out, not fuck yourself. If there's no reason why you have to be stuck where you're at. There's always options to be able to provide yourself with a good, healthy way to move your assets around. And as long as there's this type of education on how it all works, then you guys will have the understanding when you're holding on to millions of dollars, how to appropriate that millions of dollars. So that's important to me.
Cool, man.
Thanks. Yeah. Get rich, bitch.
How you doing? Can I ask you a question?
Oh, that's the
plan.
Yeah, I'm just preparing people for potential good shit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Sorry to interrupt. Who else here is thinking that maybe the whales might be pumping up Hex here right now to scoop up and throw in HSIs to get Icosa to get more yield come the auction event? I think we're going to see Hex pump right up into that auction event, and then we'll see what happens. But that's just me.
I've heard a few people saying this recently.
Yeah, I have too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The idea, the way I heard it was, if you make the presumption that there's some whales that want to see Hedron burned, the best way to do that is pump the price of Hex so that HSIs have more inherent value when they're being bid on, which means more Hedron will be burned. Yes. And alternatively, you can think about that as if you're an Icosa stakeholder and you want to see your yield improve. Again, if you want to see more people bid in Hedron, you would actually pump the price of Hex to make that happen.
That's right.
It's a little tinfoil hatty, but I mean, whale games are whale games, so who knows? Yeah.
Jason, that's very great. It's great.
It's really great. Yeah, it's really fun to think about that could be happening right now. I don't know. I think it's pretty fun.
Well, I mean, what's the alternative here? The only way to get more hedron to be burned is to dump the price of it. So that way you have to spend more hedron to get the value to hit the premium in the first place. So yeah, it would be great for hedron's supply if the price was lower, because then more massive amounts of hedron will actually be burned. The higher the price of hedron, the less hedron's actually going to be required to burn to win these HSIs. However, turnkey to that understanding of what you guys just said, without dumping the price of hedron, you don't even need to dump the price of hedron. You just increase the price of the underlying asset, which is hex. And now the ceiling price moves. Now, because of that, the price of the HSIs goes up, meaning that the premium cost of the hex inside of it is actually increasing the amount of hedron that you're really going to need to be able to win the HSI in the first place. So you can have all assets go up and have your cake and eat it fucking too, pretty much.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way, but yeah,
what if you do both?
Instead of dumping hedron, because the whale could do that too. They could dump hedron, but assuming a benevolent whale that wants to see, the way you described it is like better, or certainly more bullish, or just like happy feely for the ecosystem. People like to see the price go up, not down. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Real quick, sorry, Jason. Yeah, as well, the execution. I just want to say thank you again, guys, for that education at the time. Sorry to interrupt. So, thanks.
No, I'm kind of talking to myself a little bit, so don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, I think I didn't really, the whole system state. You were the one that brought that up, right? On your thought process on the thing. And I didn't really think about that until you just said that. But I have been involved in that conversations previous to, like, what happens to hedron if the price goes down? What happens to the hedron, not the hedron, but the hedron burned if price goes down? I it was obvious, like, more hedron gets burned to the premium cost. Well, what happens if the price goes up? Well, then less hedron burn. Well, that's probably not good. No. It was all these things. And it's like, I don't see how you can say that the asset you're holding, the price going up is not good. But I can kind of see what you're saying as far as the supply in the hands of the
pools,
right? The circulating supply.
Yeah, I just see that, right? Makes sense, right? Them to load up to try to get a bigger grasp percentages on pools. That's all that is.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's I love it. It makes so much sense to me. It correlates like a motherfucker, dude. Yeah, for sure.
Gifford and Blue, they were talking about this yesterday in the chat. They had the screen open doing the math.
That's what I heard too. Sorry, that's
real quick question though. What if we have like a double-sided thing where hex goes up and hedron dips? That would increase the burn by twofold.
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
Yeah, it would. That's exactly right. It would. Because the amount of hedron that you'd need to get to the premium would be that much more that you would need, because the premium would be even higher. Like, I was telling people, like, if the hex price goes down and the hedron price goes up, then we're going to smash against the ceiling where arbitrage will start happening sooner, as opposed to hex just going at 3 cents and then we need to get to 5 zeros and a 4. Well, if hex goes down to a penny and a half, then we cut the ceiling price down by half. We may already be there where arbitrage is going to happen, where now it's telling people to go buy hex. Well, in the same respect, if they diverge the other way when it comes to the burning, like, you're going to need more to get to the premium cost of the hex that's in it. Like, yeah, that's good thought.
Yeah, the next month is going to be quite interesting.
And we really needed it. I mean, hedron.
Is somebody talking, like, so we can hear them? Fat Cat.
Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to. Didn't realize. Sorry, boys.
So people in your house in the background are talking about hedron. I can hear them.
Yeah. I was listening. I'm just listening to Jim Rat Crypto and you guys talk at the same time.
Oh, I see. Neat. So yeah, that's an interesting thought. I prefer that hex price goes up, hedron price stays the same or continues to keep incrementally going up, and that hex kind of tears away from it, and that we have a rise in all the prices and still get a lot of hedron burned, and everybody wins. Like, the have your cake and eat it too. And some of these big like, we know that God Whale is involved in this stuff. We know what the capabilities of God Whale is. God Whale can push around all these assets, all three of them around whenever he wants.
Yeah.
Very interesting thoughts, guys.
That's
Very good.
exactly what I would want to see as well, executioner, except for the hex price to not dump right away as the auction's over. Then we're looking real good.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, here's the thing is, if you give it enough time and you don't parabolically move it like 3 pennies in a day, but maybe a half a penny or a penny every day, where it starts to make the liquidity providers think this is the time I need to start moving my assets up, because now I'm going to start going out of my ranges and incurring impermanent loss against myself, because I will have to create permanent loss and remove this range and reappropriate it to another side. That if you give them enough time to really think about it, like a month, that by that time, all of the liquidity would have moved up to the new price range, meaning that it can't dump down anymore. Kind of like it becomes the red zone or the yellow zone of volatile area. Now 3 cents is now too volatile to hold that price, and any small buys will shoot you back up to the 4 or 5 cent range again. Just the same thing as having it on the high side volatile with green candles and someone selling it down back to the price. It can happen on the low side too, just the exact same way. So yeah, as long as it isn't a parabolic movement and it gives liquidity providers time to understand that, yes, sentiment of the asset has changed and it makes sense for me to move my assets and sell them for a higher price, then they will do that, and price will be sustained at those rates. And I will be watching those things for sure, especially now that, I mean, I was going to do that before, but now I'm probably going to look at it in a different lens, a slightly different lens. You guys realize that, like, a lot of us guys that speak about Hedron and Icosa and Hex and stuff like that, that we don't talk to each other very often or at all most of the time. And somehow we still kind of derive these same types of mentality, thought process things, and build off of each other and bring it all back to you guys. Hell, there's sometimes that I hear shit from just rando community members about some really clever, cool things, and they're like, yeah, the guy that's technically sitting next to you in the chair of educators is the one that said something about it. And I'm like, huh, I didn't even know. Just like this type of stuff. It's so fun. This is interesting.
I don't know. Do you have time to sit around and watch a bunch of different YouTube videos from all the different Hex content creators out there? Yeah.
Absolutely not. No, I do not. I mean, I've already gotten so lazy with it, like I said, creating API.
That's not lazy.
Data
That's
sheets
just
that do a lot of stuff
good,
for me, so I don't have to have them do it. Yeah, I call it lazy.
Good coachmanship.
Well, I mean, in a certain respect, I don't even need the API stuff to just go and look, right? The API allows for me to look at everything at once, or at least it tells me what to go look at so I can make concise decisions. But I mean, that would be if I was like making moves every fucking day. I mean, that would be one thing, but that's just not me. I'm not a trader. I don't do a lot of this stuff. Usually I just set it and forget it a lot of the times. And I want to make sure that wherever I'm setting it, that I can forget it for a long time because I made the right call as to where it was at. And I'm getting the advantage of that. Eventually knowing that at some point in time, I'm going to have to maintain where my liquidity positions are, let's say, or my stakes that I have or whatever. I'm going to have to do something. And then in that laziness, like, I like the comfortability of that, right? Of just, I can just go look at a few things, understand how it works, and then move on. But in educating a lot of people, like, some people may be not as lazy as I am and really want to go look at all this stuff and like really get nitty gritty down into the details of it. And in knowing that, I don't want to be having pages ripped out of the book where they're only getting a certain part of the story. So that way they can know that there are multiple things to look at that could be very pertinent to what they're trying to do. Whether I'm doing it or not is inconsequential, but it may be very consequential to you as an investor or a speculator or a staker or a liquidity provider. You know, I usually don't talk to people like they're all millionaires. I usually talk to people like they have nothing and try to find the advantage on how they can appropriate more assets so they can be something in the future. As long as everything goes, according to plan, right? I guess everyone wants, all assets to go up. We just wait for the bull market. All assets will go up. Rising tides or whatever makes all ships raise or whatever the hell.
Just keep remembering how well Hedron, this ecosystem's doing in this bear market. Just keep focused on, like you just said, that how well it's doing. Just wait till a bull market. Like,
oh yeah, because it's a lot easier for the market makers to have that sentiment that people want to buy higher price stuff, especially in a bull market, because just the sentiment's already there. In a bear market, it is tough to get market makers to decide, yep, sentiment's changed, I can sell these for a higher price, and people aren't gonna dump into it and sell it down out of the range. And now I'm incurred in permanent loss because I didn't take heed to all the stuff that can happen, right? The general sentimentality of an ecosystem, a community of people, all being negative, all ready for prices to go down lower, and even some people like that have fat stacks of cash that were waiting for an entry period to lower their average. They may be wanting the price to go lower during these periods of time. So as a market maker, you kind of want to incentivize the people with money, right? Not just some rando trader, but the people with the actual money to get in and then have the long-term speculative understanding of macro market movements. So usually market makers appropriate that first and foremost, sentiment. So bear market sentiment generally tracks a downward trend, and market makers appropriate those things as well. Generally, they are scooping up every average they can with all the USDC they have as the price continues to go down, meaning on the way back up in the bull market, they have big old fat giant stacks of assets that they're just more than happy to start selling at a higher price whenever the hell the sentiment changes. So then they do. Why wouldn't they? They've prepared for it for a long time, sometimes years. So they do. Market makers probably have the longest term mentality thought processes than anybody. Good ones do, anyway. Ones that believe in the product. Not product. I wouldn't get too far into investing a lot of money into unproven, unfinished projects with dev teams and all sorts of shit that can change with admin keys and all that junk. I wouldn't get involved too much with this stuff, or I would allow for a pump and dump on those particular projects, which hexagons are pretty good at doing. They're pretty good at extracting value from shit tokens, especially during the bull market, and bringing it into hex, just ruining those other assets. And they don't give a fuck. They don't care. Hexagons do not care about those other assets. They want to bring the money back in so they can have more hex. Just like how the Bitcoiners are, well, even today, Bitcoiners do the same thing. They come into the Ethereum network and speculate on altcoins to extract value from them and buy more Bitcoin.
Executioner, are you Hex like OD, like a early Hex guy?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Yes, I am. That's why I'm so passionate, sometimes crazy about the stuff.
Yeah, I try not to dwell because I myself was one to know of Richard Hart well before like Hexo, like I knew about him before like Hex, and then I watched it all, and then oh man, I missed that one.
Oh,
But we found our way, so
yeah,
everything's good. Yeah.
I agree. I absolutely agree. The protocol is designed for new people to come in, and for people who've been in it the longest to lose the advantage over a certain period of time. So I mean, it's good. I find it to have longevity, so I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, and also, like, I guess I got lucky. I'm an early Hexagon. I found out about Hedron, and I was particularly interested in Hedron because I use the protocols to their efficient value, and I locked up 100% of my hex. Right, I'm not a trader. Right, I like how the contract works, but in locking up all of that hex, I watched the price go from nothing to 52 cents, and watched my staker app go to, why the fuck am I still working? Right, I wouldn't have to if I just kept it liquid. Even I had that thought, right? And I could sell the top, but I didn't. I didn't never give myself the opportunity to do that. And in many ways, I'm thankful, very, very, very thankful, because I did not have any clue that Hedron was coming. However, I was working with people at the time for maybe a year, about as long as what Alex was developing Hedron for, with other people, to figure out how to actually do the tradable shares thing. Because, like, if I'm locked up in my hex stakes, then I would love nothing more than to be able to get liquidity out of my stakes that I have that I can't touch for 15 years to a certain extent, right? I think my average staking length is like 10 years or some shit, right? So when Hedron came out, that was it. Like, I was in love. All the work
Same.
and all the thought process and all the stuff that we were doing, like, it was, we were more than happy to throw it in the trash can and be like, okay, we're done with this. We don't even need to work on this anymore. This Alex guy has not only did everything that we were thinking about, he went even further than what we even thought was possible, and provides this. So I was like a negative day 40, day 70, negative 70 day into Hedron, like day 2 of its public knowledge of a Telegram chat. I was in here. So I was lucky in that respect too. So I, being, that there was only like 20 people in there, Richard Hart included, that we had direct availability to speaking to all these people about what the hell this thing is and how does it work and what are the advantages. And we spent like hours of game theory of all these things just with Hedron alone, with it being involved with Hex. And we got so excited. Like, it was insane, right? We were like, oh my fucking God, like, people aren't going to understand what the hell they have here. And Alex was like, yeah, I know. Watch what happens. Right? Watch all these people dump this shit. And we were like, what do you mean? Like, there's no way. Not if they have the understanding of what we do. Like, why would they do that? That's dumb. And everything he said, exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. And he's like, I see the price going to 7 zeros. Like, all the whales and all the sharks, they're all going to dump. Well, all the dolphins did. A lot of the sharks did. Almost all of them did. But none of the whales did. None of them did. I don't know if a lot of those hex whales happened to be in the chat during those periods of time when we were all talking. But we certainly didn't do anything to sell that shit, that's for sure. And in the end result, Icosa comes around the corner and Alex is laughing his fucking ass off and like, told you, fucking
yeah.
Right? And here we are, right?
Yeah, wow.
I remember him talking about that in an interview, how it was sort of, he kind of didn't mind delaying Icosa because he kind of wanted the people who didn't believe in Hedron to just dump it so other people could get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time we were like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, coming full circle, we were like, dude, you're smart. You're just too smart. Man, thank God I listened to you, right? You don't trust anybody. You trust 0 people is probably the best way to handle your shit, unless you can educate yourself in some sort of way, derive information, collect data, whatever it is that gives you the confidence to be able to do investing in the assets that you're doing whatever you're doing in on your own, to make your own conclusive, informed decisions. Generally, you're not just like have what had happened. I mean, Alex is a genuine motherfucker, right? And you don't get that ever. Richard Hart, I believe he's the same way.
Executioner, do you have like a rough, you'd say like estimate on like recommend like somebody like how much Hedron someone should have?
Oh,
I think like maybe have $1 billion, right?
sure. Yeah. Yeah. What is that? Like under $4,000, like $3,500
Yeah.
or something like that.
I don't know. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Why not? I mean, if it 10x's from here to get to the ceiling price, or actually I think the ceiling price is higher, 15x's from here, then you're looking at like 50 grand. That's a pretty good payout.
Okay, so 10 billion it is. Thanks.
I'm just saying, like, we're in the bear market, guys. The bull market will come. The cycle will continue. It will happen. Like, would you want to wait for the ceiling price to happen where now it's telling you to buy Hex, or would you rather buy where it's undervalued and then let the macro markets take its course and then smack you
And
up
then,
against
yeah. And then Pulse Chain launches and Hex goes bananas, and here we go. So
yeah. And those of us that like provide assets to the market for you guys to speculate in, invest in, buy, sell, trade, whatever that, and we don't care. Do whatever you want to do. Well, we have the understanding. We know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. And when Pulse Chain launches, I have a speculative feeling, without being definitive. I can't say this definitively, but I can have a general feeling inside, I guess, that price parity between particular certain pairs when Pulse Chain launches, like Hex and Hedron, and maybe even potentially Icosa, since there will be, sufficient liquidity, as long as Pulse Chain waits another 2 months, I think that we'll have sufficient for Icosa to continue those things. And price parity will be there pretty quick, only for those assets. The rest of them, probably not so much.
What would we do if a new project copied and beat Pulse Chain to market and did the same thing that we're trying to do now? They just beat us. What would that look like for us?
Another copy for us?
Yeah, I would not mean that we missed out then, no, or like.
Well, I think Pulse Chain will still launch. Either way.
Okay.
Because for them to copy exactly what Pulse Chain is with any added functions, any added whatever data sites or whatever it is that they decide to put on the whole entirety of it, which I'm pretty sure that they will have, that we just haven't seen yet, then they would have to be some sort of insider stealing information to be able to do that, which I find highly unlikely. I think that somebody could be like, this is what I think that it might be, and try to front run it and just do whatever they think that it might be. But if it's not Pulse Chain, they better make sure that in some sort of way that it's going to incentivize liquidity providers and market makers to come to their network with their assets. Yeah. Provide liquidity across some sort of very safe bridge to be able to bring price parity between them. If they don't have that, fail.
Yeah.
Well, for those assets.
When you put it that way, okay, just calming my nerves, making sense. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Pulse Chain's going to have a massive amount of volume. Yeah.
And exactly. And if that did happen, now that I think about it, there's no reason why something else couldn't be changed afterwards too, to make it more individual, more Pulse Chain. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not worried about Pulse Chain because there's so many people that are already invested in it, like over 100,000 people, that we're going to have volume across the pairs, like probably more volume. Actually, I know this, definitely more volume than any other network has ever had at their first launch period, ever. At first initial launch, because they didn't have adoption. They had to launch empty. Every single one of them, even Ethereum did, had to launch empty and build upon that. Pulse Chain is not doing that. It is immediate adoption from those involved, and then more adoption from those who believe, with people like me that would onboard people into Pulse Chain through the appropriate means, onboard, offboard means. and maybe even potentially keep my onboards away from the Ethereum side if they're brand new into crypto, right? I would educate them and let them know about it and let them go into what they want to do with it. But I would, I'm also okay, amongst other things, like I said, I'm an early hexagon. I was way early into Hedron. I was obviously way early into Icosa. Yay for fucking me, right?
We all are.
However,
Not just
good.
you, not just you. We all
Yeah.
are early on Hedron.
Great.
And
I would suggest, since we all have that knowledge, don't do what I just did and tell people. Also, probably after a certain period of time after Pulse Chain launches, maybe some of us, maybe all of us, should shy away from telling people that we were day one sacrificers for Pulse Chain like I was as well, and day one sacrificers for PulseX like I was as well, on top of it. There's reasons for that you'd want to avoid letting people know all the stuff that you have for security reasons.
Yeah, because you don't think about it now, but wait in a few years. Imagine telling people that you had like, oh yeah, I bought this Bitcoin stuff and I bought like 10,000 of them. And I bought a pizza. No.
Yeah, I was one of them. Go ahead, Rich.
Sorry, I was just commenting that Mark went up for, the right to privacy.
Yeah, that's a good thing about blockchain, right? Is nobody knows who it is, not unless like the worst thing that I see happen. I mean, other than like telling people, I was a day one, whatever, is like when people come in and they're like, how much should I buy of this? Right? Like earlier, right? When we're like, oh, I'm going to buy 10 billion, right? The worst thing you could do is be like, oh, I just went and bought 10 billion coins, because people are going to go look at Dex Screener and go look across the pairs, see who just bought 10 billion worth of the coin, and now they have your wallet address allocated to your pseudonym.
Essentially, you have to act like everything you're doing is being recorded in a sense.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't know who's listening, because before in the Icosa chat, I think some guy said like, "Whoa, I'm up 5K," and in my head I was like, "Yeah, nice of you to tell us that. Now I know approximately how much hex you have."
Yeah.
Suppose you could always just tell people whatever you could tell them wrong stuff and be the one laughing. I don't know.
Best thing is not even to tell them, not even to let them know that you hold crypto. I mean,
I agree.
When it becomes after a certain point, you have to do it, because otherwise, yeah. I did it too. I started investing in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I was bragging about it. Oh, I bought Ethereum at $126 per ETH, and it went to 4,000. And then people start looking at you like, I was enthusiastic, because I wanted the same for other people. I'm like, if it's possible for me, then it's possible for you. I'm not telling you this to brag, but I'm telling you because it's possible for you too.
That's an admirable thing to do, and I think we've all been caught in those types of situations before. But ultimately, we can't save everyone.
No, it's up to people that save themselves. I help people. I help the one that help themselves. I mean, if you can give a person $5 million, but if he stays with the same habits, he'll be poor again in no time. We see this with lottery winners,
Yeah.
Speaking as an ex-alcoholic and an ex-junkie, you're goddamn right. You just gotta help yourself, right? You guys can't help me change. I gotta help myself. So
yeah, it's good to see potential in people, but the potential has to come out. If the person himself is not putting it out there, then what is the use of the potential, because we see potential in all kinds of people, but if it doesn't come out, you can try
Yeah,
to
but I'm
stimulate
still
it.
gonna go tell. I'm still gonna go tell
Yep.
hexagons that go around and tell people, or they make the statement, I'm a retired Hexican, I'm going to still tell them to knock that shit off. Don't do that, because you're putting a target on your back. Not from people coming and wrench attacking you, but from the community themselves, because they're going to see as you're the one dumping on their heads. Whether you're the one dumping on their heads or not, they're gonna come after you like that. I know. I've had it happen to me, right? And without even saying that, right? Just like telling people like how I onboard people and trying to explain to like how you get big giant onboards of like hundreds of thousands of dollars and how you can utilize that to your advantage. I was called a piece of shit, and like they tried to run me out of the chat where like I was telling them that they're fucking dumb, right? Like this is not how it works.
Yeah, I think there'll come a time when being an early Hexican and Hedronian will have that same kind of, cautionary advice, and best to get that kind of set right now, because this next bull run is probably going to be, in my opinion, is going to be pretty nuts and catch a lot of people off guard.
Yeah, imagine, because by the next bull run, even if it's in 2-3 years, whatever, imagine there's going to be maybe millions of people extra. Since you came in, millions of people are going to come after us. I mean, we're right we're right in the beginning of the big wave, of mass adoption. So
All the big whales, like you said earlier, all dumped in the beginning when this thing launched. Well, like I said, is doing, and in this bull run, it's going to be nuts. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not seeing how well. Like, I don't know if anybody else is just not seeing this, but me, I just see so much strength in these conditions, and everything else not so much. And it just looks good. Yeah, it looks like really, really good for the bull market. So.
Hey, Executioner, let me borrow you for a second. Just mod chat when you get a chance, okay?
I just saw this video on YouTube in the shorts, and it's free water. I know I'm advertising, but it's called freewater.io, and they sell the ad space on the outside of the bottle, and they give free water to people. I mean, it's great. I'm contacting them, and I sent them an email to talk with them. Maybe we can get a Hex logo on there somewhere.
Is this an idea or like a real thing that's coming out? This
It's
isn't
a
a
real
joke.
thing. It's out. The free
No,
water.
I'm asking Jawa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did he leave? Does he want me to go to the other chat? Hold on.
I think Java wants to talk to you.
Okay. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, I think you said that.
That's unfair. I want to be in on that chat too.